There's been a lot of discourse around the topic of whether or not something counts as anime, specifically if it's made outside of Japan and made by non-Japanese people. Now, personally, I've been involved in a lot of black art groups / nerd groups, and of course, the conversation has been had there as well. The more specific version of the topic being, can black people make manga / anime? And can there be a such thing as black anime / manga? Short answer, yes, there definitely can be. Now, for those who may want a bit more of an in-depth answer with, some ranting and some venting on the side, honestly, the rant part is probably going to take up a lot more of the video than I hope it would. Just a heads up. Now, there have definitely been several anime and manga with black characters in them. This is really not as new as a lot of newer anime fans may think it is, or even anime watchers who've been watching anime since before 2019. There have been several shows that are quite obviously anime inspired, that many would indeed say count as an anime, specifically things like the Boondocks. On the other side, there's those who will say that the Boondocks doesn't count because while anime inspired, it's still just a Western cartoon. That it doesn't count as anime because it wasn't made in Japan by Japanese people. But how true is that statement really? Do the Japanese feel that way? Does one have to be from a group of people in order to participate in something that their culture created? Another question I've heard asked is participating in something from another culture that you yourself are not a part of a form of cultural appropriation? Alright, so boom. What exactly is anime? In Japan, it's just a general term that's used when talking about animation. In the West, it means animations produced in Japan. From a technical standpoint, there's not much that separates anime from Western animation. What does separate the two tends to not only be the style, but the aspect of storytelling and nuanced characters, whereas most Western cartoons tend to be more intent on being ultimately lighthearted, funny, and more kid-friendly. Well, aside from adult animation at least. Those shows tend to go where their kid-friendly counterparts won't. When it comes to the topic of does someone have to be from a group of people in order to participate in something that their culture created, and is doing so a form of cultural appropriation, there's a plethora of different answers from various groups of people who have their own perspective on it. Personally, the way I see it is like this. You have things like concepts and templates. Concepts being an abstract idea or general notion. Templates being a form, mold, or pattern used as a guide to make something or a way of doing things. No one can claim ownership of a concept, but templates can definitely be claimed by an individual or group of people. For example, no one can claim the concept of things like food, language, clothing, music, art, weapons, stories, culture, etc., etc. However, there are specific food dishes, specific languages, specific styles of clothing, genres of music, styles of dancing, styles of art, types of weapons, methods of storytelling, types of cultures, etc., etc. that do belong to specific groups of people because they were the ones who created them. These are templates specifically created by those people, therefore it belongs to that particular culture. Now, culture being defined as the arts and manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively, the customs, the arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. A slightly more in-depth explanation would be that culture is more so a concept that encompasses the social behavior, institutions, and norms found within human societies, as well as the knowledge, beliefs, arts, laws, customs, capabilities, and the habits of the individuals within those groups. Culture is something that's often originated from or attributed to a specific group, region, or location. Now, there are also other templates that more so belong to an individual or a group of individuals, like technological inventions, things that weren't exactly created to be a staple of a person's culture, but more so something created as a means to make life easier for people, like how cranes make construction work a lot easier. Transportation makes it easier to travel longer distances, not only faster, but without having to use your own feet or to use animals. Clocks make it easier to keep track of time. Computers and the internet have various benefits that come with them as well. All inventions have inventors, and all those inventors belong to different groups of people. Things like gas masks, traffic lights, and automatic elevator doors may not belong to black culture, but they do belong to a black inventor. So it's pretty safe to say that without such and such group of people, such and such things most likely wouldn't even exist. Now, unless you don't pay attention to these types of things, it should be quite obvious by now that there's people who will hear things like that, and they'll take issue with factors like these being acknowledged when it comes to the discussions of what individual or what group of people created what. Especially if we're talking about the people who claim to be of the quote-unquote "I don't see race" mindset. Now right here is the part where I'm gonna start ranting and venting and going off into different tangents that somehow in some way, shape, or form relate back to the main topic. So if you want to skip past this part and just get to the main point of the video, I'll timestamp where the rant ends and stuff. Unless of course you're watching this on the premiere, which in that case, I don't know, I guess wait till the premiere is over and then come back and watch it later when the timestamp is available. And I'm only gonna say this once because I don't want to keep repeating this shit throughout the entire video. Nothing of what I'm about to talk about is gonna be said in an attempt to negatively generalize any particular group of people. Everything that I'm about to start talking about only applies to the people that it actually applies to. Straight like that. Nothing more, nothing less.
But if the shoe fits and you getting offended by this shit, then yes, I'm talking to you.
Now see, the funny thing about a lot of people who claim to quote unquote not see race or not care about race, you know, these people tend to be the most two-faced and self-contradictory when it comes to living by those words. I mean, they will claim to have this progressive post-racial mindset of there's only one race, the human race. A lot of the people who claim to not see race tend to be pretty damn racist behind closed doors or behind a keyboard with an anime profile picture. For example, they hate whenever it's mentioned that a black person invented something, or whenever people mention that something comes from black culture. Their usual response to it is, why does it matter that they're black though? Why make it about race? Why can't you just leave race out of these things? You're doing nothing except stirring the pot and causing division by mentioning the inventor's race. You know, the typical fake good guy stuff they like to say. These cats have a very selective mindset about when they want race to be a thing or when they don't want it to be a thing. When they want it to matter and when they don't want it to matter. Basically, it's something that they only want to ignore or acknowledge whenever it's convenient for them. It annoys them whenever it's made mention that a type of slang or dance comes from black people. All of a sudden, they want race to be left out of the equation and not be brought up because mentioning race is what quote unquote allows racism to continue existing. Though it isn't. However, whenever a crime is committed and the perpetrator happens to be a black person, notice how these same I don't see race, there's only one race, the human race type of people are in absolutely no rush to leave race out of the equation. Miraculously, they have zero issue with race being brought up. It could be the very headline of the article itself and they'd be perfectly fine with that. Ain't none of that, yo, why do you have to mention that they're black though? Like, why make it about race? Well, why can't you just leave race out of these things? You're causing division by mentioning the offender's race. Oh nah, they become professional shut the fuck uppers at that moment. And this is one of the main reasons I always say that these people are full of nothing but shit and contradictions. Hence why they should not be taken seriously. If you're gonna sit up there and make a big deal out of race when it comes to the bad stuff, you don't get to complain about someone else making a big deal out of race when it comes to the good stuff. You don't get to change how the rules work. But then again, I'm pretty sure it's hard to acknowledge the creator of something when said creators are the same people you're not too fond of. If I had like a serious hate boner for women, right? And I don't just mean just one specific woman or certain types of women. I'm talking about if I despise the very idea of females in any species, I'd be hella reluctant to acknowledge that a woman made some of my favorite manga / anime series that I enjoyed. Full Metal Alchemist, Hitman Reborn, D. Gray Man, Dead Man Wonderland, Blue Exorcist, Demon Slayer, Dorohedoro, Gangsta, and possibly Jujutsu Kaisen if the rumors about Gege Akutami turn out to be true. I'd be livid as hell. So you trying to tell me that somebody with a vagina made this shit? Nah, you just trying to be on that woke shit. I mean, like, Pete, I could sit up here and make a video praising black women, talking about how beautiful and amazing they are, and how much I'd like to have a black woman in my life and all kinds of other complimentary things, right? You'll have some people who, for some reason, get bothered by me saying all that and will start throwing around comments like, other races of women exist too, you know. Why single out black women? They're not the only women on earth. Are you trying to say that non-black women are ugly or something? What? But on the other hand, right, I could make a video praising white women. Just them, right? And talking about how beautiful they are and how I just needs to have me a white girl so I could slide my fingers down the crack of that ass and all that other goofy shit, right? And the same people who felt bothered about me praising black women exclusively will for some reason have no comments or complaints to make. If anything, they'll just type LMAO, type thank you, or maybe some laugh emojis or some other shit. But peep this. If I made a video shitting on black women, bet money they won't complain about that either. They'll probably either giggle or maybe even agree and put in their 2 cents. They're not gonna sit up here and be like, other races of women exist too, you know. Black women are not the only ones who can be toxic to deal with. Why don't you shit on all women equally? What, you think non-black women are perfect or something? None of that shit. And you could say the same thing for if a black woman makes a video shitting on black men versus praising black men. I mean, bro, I could deadass make a whole ass 5-year-long career off this shit. Cause believe me when I tell you, this gender warring bullshit, especially between black men and women, is highly profitable. Well, you know, until it stops working, and then the same people who built their career off that shit are now begging the same people they've been shitting on for GoFundMe donations. But if I'm uplifting black women or speaking positively about black people in general, or, you know, saying how much I'm proud of my heritage, suddenly I can't just single out one particular group of people. I gotta be all inclusive with my reverence. Now all of a sudden I need to be considerate of the fact that other races exist now. I can be extremely selective and specific with my vitriol, but I gotta be all inclusive when it comes to praise. And then of course there's the inevitable comments of, well, how would you feel if a white guy made a video or a post talking about how much he loves white women and how he thinks they're beautiful and there's nothing more he wants than a white woman in his life?
Whoa! That's interesting, but I sure don't care.
Well, for one, you'd probably be making that video out of spite. But if you wanted to make such a video like that,
do it.
Now, yeah, I'm pretty sure there might be some black people who would feel some type of way about it, but don't kid yourself into thinking I'm one of those people, because I genuinely lack the obsessive investment in your existence necessary for me to pretend like I'd be offended by some shit like that. If an Asian dude wanted to make a video about how much he loves Asian women and all that stuff and wants to praise them to the max, go right ahead. The hell I look like getting mad about that. Anyway, now if you saw my video that I made about hood movies and counter narratives, which I'm still pissed off that I can't monetize, by the way, now the mass majority of the people who watched it agree with what I had to say, which honestly took me by surprise, because to tell the truth, I was expecting smoke. Now I did get some negative comments here and there, got some bitter motherfuckers in their feelings and all that, but for the most part, you know, people was rocking with it. But I noticed some comments in regards to black people creating their own narratives were asking the question, but why does it have to be a bunch of black people? Why not be all inclusive? Now, the question of an inclusive cast isn't the issue, but see, the thing is, with most anime, the characters tend to be mostly, if not all, Japanese, and it's unquestioned for the most part, aside from some weirdos on the internet, right? But for some reason, soon as the idea of a black cast is brought up, suddenly you got some people who want to pose questions about, but what if other people feel left out? How do you expect them to relate to these characters? Well, the same way that you relate to a full-on Japanese cast of characters within an anime while not being Japanese yourself. Or the same way that you relate to a Korean cast of characters within a K-drama while not being Korean yourself. I mean, last time I checked, I thought a character didn't have to physically resemble you in order for you to relate to them. So why are you suddenly worried about that now? If it didn't matter then, it shouldn't matter now, right? But see, something that I've noticed is that usually this question of where's everyone else only tends to get brought up when it's a story that's not part of the usual life just sucks ass type stories with an all black cast. For some reason in those scenarios, nobody ever wants to ask where's all the white people or where's such and such else in a story like Menace to Society or Boys in the Hood or anything else of that nature. They be in no kind of rush to say, dude, you know, like other races have broken families and live in bad neighborhoods and they deal with crime and stuff too, you know. Black people are not the only ones who go through stuff like this. This story should be more inclusive so that people don't feel left out. You know, something that I realized a long ass time ago but didn't know how to put it into words back then is that black people can be in a state of weakness, dysfunction, dilapidation, destitution, deficiency, and every other undesirable state of being all by themselves. But whenever black people have something good going for themselves, all of a sudden that can't be just attributed to black people. That has to be shared with the rest of the world, and they think everyone should get credit for it. Like hip hop, for example. You have people who try their best to just completely omit black people from hip hop and say that it quote unquote belongs to everyone because there's non-black people who like hip hop. Well, it's pretty selfish of you to think that hip hop should only belong to black people.
Eat a dick, nigga.
Then you got the motherfuckers who be like, oh my gosh, why do black people always act like they're owed credit for everything? Like they made everything or something.
Shut your stupid.
First of all, smart ass, shut up. Because never once have I ever said or tried to imply that black people created everything, because no one group of people has all the ideas. What I am saying is that black people created the things that black people created, which is a lot of shit that a lot of motherfuckers flat out refuse to acknowledge or credit black people for, but are quick as hell to acknowledge when a black person somewhere in the world does something bad. See, these are the same people who will make these arguments and also complain about stuff like Afrocentrism. But the most hilarious thing about Afrocentrism is realizing is that it only exists as a consequence in response to Eurocentrism. You have people who live by the mindset that white people created everything that there culture is. That white people are this special chosen race, and they civilized every other race in the world who was just a bunch of mindless savages eating each other at the time, especially black people. Because according to them, you know, black people was just wilding out in the jungles of Africa, swinging on vines and clapping gorilla cheeks, until white people showed up and taught them how to read and wear clothes. And then to top it all over, you got some hopelessly lost ass black people in all corners of the world, Africa included, who actually believe that shit. Cause according to their cooked ass brains, everything that comes out of a white person's mouth is nothing but gospel, an irrefutable fact, even if it's obviously bullshit.
Did black people collectively come together to invent hip-hop?
Did white people collectively paint the Sistine Chapel? Did they collectively invent airplanes or the automobile?
No? Then shut the fuck up.
Because I bet money they would not just be cool with somebody from another race trying to take credit for some shit that Europeans did. But they love to try to hammer in the lie that credit and ownership is of no importance. Meanwhile, the same people saying that are clearly not believing, let alone practicing, what they're preaching. Quick as hell to tell a group of people of what doesn't belong to them. Quick as hell to keep them reminded that they're guests in someone else's house. Love to take credit for all the things that individuals from their race contributed to the collective world, but don't want other people to do the same thing for their own people's contributions. Want to put their name on stuff to remind people of who made what, but want everybody else to just remain anonymous with their shit because it quote unquote doesn't matter who made what. Want to take collective credit for the good contributions, but want to distance themselves from the devils within their group though. Talking about, you can't generalize an entire race of people for the crimes committed by individuals from that race. Oh, but it's perfectly fine for you to do it to someone else, right? Because, you know, statistics and shit.
I have nothing to do with it. Innocent as can be. You want to take collective credit, but you want to individualize blame. But you'll say that Isaac Newton, for example, is a product of the West. Michelangelo was a product of the West. Mozart was a product of the West. Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, they're all products of the West. But somehow your villains are all bastards. Illegitimate children that you don't want to claim. No, Hitler was your child. King Leopold was your child. Harry Truman was your child, a man who killed more people in a matter of seconds than anyone in the history of the human race.
These fake-ass ultras would have no objections to any black person who wants to claim degeneracy as black culture. Hey yo, that old self-destructive, dysfunctional, degenerate shit, that's all you, bro. But as soon as black people start claiming the valuable things that black culture created, all of a sudden, no one can own that. That belongs to everyone.
Shut up, bitch.
Because as far as they're concerned, black people can fail by themselves, but can't be successful by themselves. We can keep the garbage, can't have the gold. We can be selfish with the suffering, but we gotta be generous with the happiness though. In other words, they want the rhythm but not the blues. It's almost like how you have that one student in class who nobody wants to talk to. Even when they try to socialize, the people who they're trying to be friendly with are giving them just enough attention to subconsciously tell them that they don't really want to talk to them at all. But as soon as that same student brings a bag of chips or a pack of gum to school, all of a sudden the whole class is his best friend.
The only time you remember who we are is when you want something.
I'll hear some people have the nerve to say, I'm so sick and tired of black people trying to gatekeep their culture.
Shut up, bitch.
The very reason why black culture is one of the most infiltrated and distorted as a result is because there is no gatekeeping. Black people are probably the only race on the planet who doesn't gatekeep anything, and it has worked against them on way too many occasions to count. Motherfuckers have always been all welcoming and all inclusive with the culture, and that's whether we're talking about non-black people who have no problems, no type of hatred, no type of smoke with black people at all, or non-black people who absolutely despise black people but like the culture and they love to emulate the things that they say and do. Everyone is allowed through the gate. You can be the most disrespectful, habitual, line-stepping, racist piece of shit, and believe it or not, there's some black people who will just let that shit rock if they like you enough, or find you attractive enough, or funny enough, or if you can imitate them well enough. The culture is basically like a house with no security system, a door with no locks on it. Even when the door is closed, that bitch is still wide open. And the funny thing is that even when there's black people who propose that there should be some level of gatekeeping implemented because way too many trifling cocksuckers are being let through the gates, the very first ones leading the charge to give pushback for that suggestion are gonna be that clown ass legion of N-word pass granting, cookout inviting ass negroids. So miss me with that shit, because if there was any kind of real gatekeeping going on with black culture, a lot of debates and conversations that get brought up every 2 weeks surrounding it damn near wouldn't even exist for real. Let's keep it a stack. The only thing motherfuckers want to gatekeep over here is the name of the restaurant that they cop some bomb ass food from, the name of the store they cop they fit from, or the music artist they've been listening to. And if they catch your ass trying to Shazam that shit, you might have a little bit of a situation. But it's wild how the same people who got nothing but hatred towards another race of people will try to project by saying it'd be racist to try to gatekeep something of theirs from them. I swear, races are like prime examples of hypocrisy in physical form. They expect the same energy that they don't give. They want respect, but they're hella disrespectful. They don't share, but want to be shared with. They love to intrude, but don't want to be intruded upon. They hit, but don't want to be hit back. They gatekeep and reject, but want to be accepted and welcomed. They point out other people's flaws, but turn into Ray Charles when it comes to their own shit. Either that, or they don't think evil is evil when they do it. They dwell within the abyss and love to take the low road, but want other people to be the bigger person and take the high road, which really just means they want somebody to be their punching bag and never retaliate. They're hateful as shit, but then want to cry when someone hates them back. They will sit up here and swear to the same God they clearly don't really believe in that racism is a myth. It's just a figment of someone else's imagination who just wants to feel like a victim. And they will sit up there and say that like the stuff that black people, for example, complain about are not even really that big of a deal and they just need to get over that shit because that stuff doesn't even happen anymore. They'll say all of that shit until somebody grandma end up getting harassed at the supermarket, and all of a sudden they want to start crying on social media. Now all of a sudden they want to start organizing marches with picket signs and balling up their fists while quoting all these talking points that black militant cats said back in the past. My people are great, strong, powerful, and resilient. They can't kill us all. They love our culture, but they don't love us.
Oh, you motherfuckers. Okay.
He copied my whole fucking flow. Word for word, bar for bar.
And it's like, hold up, aren't you the same motherfucker who just said this stuff doesn't happen anymore? Want to start throwing out Martin Luther King quotes? These bitches love quoting them some Martin Luther King, don't they? Especially when it's convenient for them and they're just trying to make themselves look like a good person who just wants everyone to get along. When under scrutiny, right, miraculously, these people supposedly have all the wisdom on how people are supposed to view and treat each other, only then to not practice or live by any of the words that came out their rotten ass mouth. And they damn sure ain't trying to quote something from Malcolm X. Which just goes to show that the same people who want to pretend like all these issues are just figment of some mass hallucination are fully aware of everything that is going on around them. And the way that we know how they know is because the same people who be the MVP of gaslighting people who complain about an issue are affected by that same issue. They end up responding to that issue the exact same way that the other people responded to it, biting off all the talking points and all that shit. They're not ignorant of the world around them. As much as they love to play dumb, they know better. It's just that you have people who only care about the shit that's relative to them. So if an issue is not affecting them or their people, then as far as they're concerned, it's not their problem. Apathy is the wave until further notice. And some people will even try to justify being apathetic towards other groups like, bro, we can't worry about other people. We got our own shit to deal with.
Okay.
You know, that's crazy. It's almost like you think the same people who went out of their way to look out for you just had all the free time in the world and didn't have their own shit to deal with. I mean, they could have just minded their own business and just let you fend for yourself when you needed help. But nah, instead they wanted to be all sympathetic and lend a helping hand because they understood your struggle. Imagine for a second you have someone who you consider to be your friend, right? Every time that they need your help, you got their back. They need some money, need a favor, you're there for them. No questions asked. But the second you need them to return a favor, the list of excuses they come up with is long enough to bridge the distance between the earth and the moon. Let's say your car broke down on the road and you call them on the phone to come pick you up and they start talking about, bro, I ain't got time for that right now, bro. I'm kind of sleepy right now, bro. Bro, I'm trying to watch the game right now, bro. Bro, I'm trying to hit up a shorty right now, bro.
Well, fuck you then, punk.
And then, of course, we get to the so-called woke versus anti-woke crowd, right? The conversation of woke versus anti-woke is a conversation that I grow more and more tired of by the day. I honestly can't stand either side, especially when you realize that both of these groups of idiots are just two wings of the same bird. First of all, woke doesn't even mean what it's supposed to mean, and the crowd that gets labeled as such doesn't even embody the meaning of the word. Then there's the so-called anti-woke crowd who can't seem to tell the difference between, or simply don't care to differentiate between, being aware of certain things regarding the world around them, which is the actual definition of woke, and just simply pandering to a demographic in an attempt to get certain results, which is what a lot of current media is actually doing. Race swapping an established white character ain't got shit to do with being woke. Deadass getting real tired of these internet motherfuckers trying to change the definition of words to mean what they want them to mean instead of what they actually mean. Actual woke wokeness is about talking about the deep and thought-provoking stuff that would actually enlighten cats who weren't privy to that information before. Stuff like racial injustice, social inequity, corrupt politicians, corrupt governments, that type of shit. Stuff that's actually true. People like Malcolm X would be someone who was considered woke. Someone like Rizza Islam would be considered woke. Rappers like Kendrick Lamar would be considered woke, if you actually pay attention to the lyrics. Old Dirty Bastard from Wu-Tang Clan would have been considered woke. But these goof-ass motherfuckers want woke to mean some stupid shit. They think woke has something to do with coloring your hair blue and piercing every inch of your skin and all that shit. Or when it comes to media, they think woke is about having non-white characters, or female characters, or race swapping, gender swapping, or sexuality swapping an established character. But no, that's just simply making unnecessary changes to an established character, because one, the people behind it are just too creatively bankrupt to either create a new character and invest in that character. Two, they can't be bothered to build up a character who's already a part of whatever category into a household name. Three, they do it for the sake of pandering to certain demographics that they think will show up in mass because of it. Or four, they do it for the sake of free marketing. They know that making certain changes and hyper fixating on those changes is going to end up invoking certain reactions from various people on the internet, and because there's going to be a bunch of rants, arguments, and responses to them, on top of people stating their opinions on it, be it positive or negative, and mass sharing it on every platform, the companies will end up saving hella money on advertising, barely having to promote the project because the internet's going to do it for them. On top of the fact that usually the woke complaints are in regards to them being tired of white people not being the center focus of every single story, including stories where non-white people would actually be the center focus. And I say that because these people indulge in that same amount of bitching when it comes to completely original stories. They love to sit up here and say, well, if you want to see people who look like you and all that, then go and make your own stories. Which, even though I know he's saying that shit from an angry standpoint, I do agree with the idea though. If we want our own narratives, I think it's best we create them ourselves instead of relying on someone else to do it. Especially trying to rely on someone who clearly doesn't want to do that in the first place. But Pete, how in the hell are you gonna sit up here and say that people should just make their own stuff, only to continue bitching at them when they do exactly that? So you don't want motherfuckers in your club, and you don't want them to have their own club, because the second they do, hear your goofy ass talking about, how come we're not included in this? Why are you excluding us? So you went from complaining about those who wanted to be part of your club to wanting to be part of someone else's club, which of course really just means you want to hijack somebody else's shit and then kick them out of their own club and then say that it's your club now when they don't belong. You want to know what these goofballs remind me of? That episode of SpongeBob when SpongeBob and Patrick went on the run for stealing a free balloon, and then they both took out their chocolate bars to eat them, right? And then Patrick inhales his joint and then blames SpongeBob for taking his chocolate bar. And old boy's like, bro, you just ate yours. It's all over your face. And then this old bloated big back bitch gonna start talking about,
oh, he took his only food and now he gonna starve.
Saying that shit with an overly fed stomach, mind you.
Ain't that a bitch?
But going back to the quote-unquote woke versus anti-woke groups, you see, the funniest thing is realizing that oftentimes neither group knows what the hell they're talking about whenever they criticize or praise something within media. Both sides are indubitably full of fake-ass fans and grifters. For example, right? Let's say that for all intents and purposes, that the Nintendo or Super Smash Bros. Cinematic universe is in the making. And let's say that they decide to make a Metroid movie. You'll have the so-called woke crowd who will praise the movie like, I'm so glad that they decided to make Samus a woman. It's good that Nintendo is giving female representation, and it's nice to finally have a movie with a female lead, because that has literally never happened before the year 2020. Then you'll have the so-called anti-woke crowd who will rage about it, talking about, I'm so sick of all this woke garbage. Why the hell did they have to gender swap Samus into a woman? Why couldn't they have just made a new character? Meanwhile, everyone who's even a little bit familiar with the Nintendo games, especially Metroid, will tell you that Samus was always a woman, you fucking donut. Or another example, with the Super Mario Bros. Movie trailer, how you had some comment section cretins complaining about the Mario Kart scene, talking about, oh my gosh, man, we can't even get a Super Mario movie without them trying to force this rainbow flag agenda in it.
The fuck is he talking about?
Anyone who has played a Mario Kart game will tell you that ever since the first one that came out back in 1992 has had a Rainbow Road level. That's all it is. It's a callback to the video games. You know, the very thing that the movie is based on. It is just a rainbow level. It is not the thing that you think it is, or probably want it to be. Even if some scatterbrained goofball on the internet says that that's what it is, It is not. I swear, son, both of these crowds need to get put on the corner and make some bank with their talent for just sucking the fun out of everything that they get their hands on, bro. Can't even enjoy some shit no more without them ruining it. Yo, if the Boondocks ended up getting that reboot series, these dumbasses would have ended up complaining about it, talking about, oh great, now they done made the Boondocks woke.
Are you retarded? Are you stupid, simple, or slow? Which one?
Like, motherfucker, did you just not pay attention to anything? It was always blatantly woke from the beginning. It was no beating around the bush. It wasn't covert. It wasn't not on the nose. It was right there in your face. They just wrapped it up in comedy. But the Boondocks was always woke. The actual definition of woke. The very first line spoken in episode 1 is,
Jesus was black, Ronald Reagan was the devil, and the government is lying about 9/11.
These motherfuckers must think the Boondocks was just a compilation of clips of Riley going,
Nigga, you gay.
You want to know what's funny about the people who complain about wokeness, or whenever a non-white person is put into a story that takes place in a setting where most of the people would be white, is the fact that those very same people never seem to have any complaints whenever a non-white character gets race swapped into a white person. It's perfectly fine for them to even retcon themselves into other people's culture and history, but the second it happens to them,
Nigga, what the fuck is this bullshit?
it's woke bullshit whenever it happens to them, but somehow it's not woke bullshit when they do it. This Irish pirate being a samurai in Neo isn't woke garbage at all, but Yasuke is somehow the final boss of wokeness. Well, look at that. A black man trying to appropriate Japanese culture. I swear, it is so knee-slap worthy when the same people who swear that things like racism and cultural appropriation don't exist suddenly become experts at pointing out what they think are examples of it. It's just hilarious how a bunch of scatterbrained Japanophiles who think and wish they were Japanese decided to take it upon themselves to act all disgusted and offended on Japan's behalf. Like the Japanese can't speak for themselves or something. And they want to act like Yasuke just randomly popped up in Japan and was like, I'm a black samurai now. Cause I said so. You can't just declare yourself as a samurai. Same as how you can't just declare yourself as a knight. But check this out though, right? You notice how you never heard these same fake offended motherfuckers complaining about Scarlett Johansson playing Motoko in Ghost in the Shell? You didn't hear them talking about, what the hell is this? Why is she white? Why couldn't they just get Karen Fukuhara to play Motoko? Why the hell do they keep making these non-white characters white? Why do white people keep trying to force themselves into other people's cultures and try to steal other people's cultures and act like they made everything? I'm so sick of all this woke bullshit. They wasn't saying none of that shit, because whenever they're the ones replacing someone and people complain about it, their response is, well, why does it matter what race they are? Well, we're all just a human race at the end of the day. It's just a fictional character. Translation, it's only a problem when anyone who isn't them is doing the janky shit that they're doing. I swear, yo, once you get an understanding of the psychology of how these people think, it becomes hilarious, because the way they end up reacting to some shit becomes a little too predictable.
Right on cue.
You realize that these cretins ain't nothing but a bunch of blatantly racist bitches masquerading as pseudo-intellectuals. Continuing with the topic of cultural appropriation. Now, while that is a very real thing that does happen, at the same time, you also have people who overuse or misuse that word without actually understanding what it actually is. See, appropriation is described as the action of taking something for one's own use, typically without the owner's permission. Cultural appropriation is described as the adoption of a certain language, behavior, clothing, or tradition belonging to a culture or social group by a dominant culture or another group in a way that's exploitative, disrespectful, or stereotypical. Oversimplifying the culture of a minority group, or even treating said culture as a joke or an accessory. You could also add the idea of erasure and trying to remove or omit a group of people from their own culture while trying to claim that culture or aspects of it for themselves. An example I'll use again is how you'll have some people who will try to omit black people from hip-hop. They'll sit up there and say, it's not yours, because there's non-black people who like hip-hop too. You even got some dizzy-ass black people who say that shit too. But what I say to that is, so what? Ownership of a culture doesn't just magically change hands just because someone from outside the culture likes something or even decides to participate in it. Just because you invite guests over to your house, that does not mean that that's no longer your house. A lot of black people like anime, but that does not mean that suddenly it belongs to us because we like it. There's plenty of non-Japanese practitioners of karate. Doesn't make it any less of a Japanese martial art, or Okinawan if you want to get into the specifics. There's plenty of non-Korean practitioners of Taekwondo. That doesn't make it any less of a Korean martial art. There's plenty of non-Thai practitioners of Muay Thai. It's still a Thai martial art. Hell, the name of the people it comes from is in the damn title. See, it's crazy how someone can be racist, right? But at the exact same time be the biggest fan of something that same group of people that they hate created, to the point where they want to try to remove them from their own shit and claim it for themselves. They'll hate another race of people from the absolute depths of their ass crack, but as soon as they take a liking to something that those people created, all of a sudden they want to act like they want to switch up their behavior, like they had a change of heart. But the thing is, they know that they can't try to claim something from those people without resistance. So instead, what they'll do is they'll play the let's do away with labels card. Now all of a sudden they don't want to be different races no more. Now they just want to be the human race. Now I'm sure that to someone who doesn't read between the lines, when people of a certain ideology say things like, this is a human thing, it belongs to everyone. Now on the surface, that might sound like some really wholesome shit for them to say, but to people who do read between the lines, oh nah, they see that statement for the Trojan horse that it really is. See, that's nothing but a form of what I like to call nice erasure. They don't like when a group of people try to claim their own shit, because they feel like since they like it, they should be entitled to it. So what they'll try to do is say that it quote unquote belongs to everyone, which is just another way to say if we can't claim that good shit, then no one gets to claim it. Just phony as can be with the fake unity talk. But the second it's time for them to go back to their default settings of being a hateful sack of shit and trying to demonize another group of people, they're perfectly fine with everyone going back to being different races again. While everyone who wasn't dumb enough to fall for the act is like, see, I told you these bitches were lying. Now I'm not saying that everyone who makes this one race human race argument is racist and full of shit, but I am saying that a lot of racist and full of shit people make this argument to try to sound like a good person. Because like I said, these creatures are hypocrisy and self-contradiction in physical form. They'll hate another race of people, but they'll indulge in something that comes from their culture. They hate another race of people, but will still sleep with someone from that race of people if the opportunity presents itself. They hate another race of people, but will go out of their way to try to include themselves in spaces where those very same people are most likely to show up at, be it a physical space or a digital space. Any person who has even a little bit of sense is gonna look at these morons like,
are you retarded? Are you stupid, simple, or slow? Which one?
This is one of the main things I particularly hate about these people, because they want to be racist, right? Yet they lack the competence and consistency to actually be good at the shit. And then of course they got this mentality where if you decide not to deal with their ass anymore, they'll try to make themselves feel better by saying that you're weak for not putting up with their shit. If you think about it, it's akin to someone leaving a relationship with a toxic person who tries to guilt trip them into staying with them. See, because one thing a narcissist with protagonist syndrome absolutely cannot stand is being forced to acknowledge just how unimportant they really are, and being forced to realize that people have absolutely no obligation to put up with their garbage asses if they really don't want to. It's like their ego just took a heel kick to the solar plexus. They can't handle that shit.
Bitch ass nigga.
I think I pretty much got everything I wanted to say in that rant out of my system. Now to get back to the business at hand. Anyway, a lot of people tend to think that a person of another race participating in something that comes from another race is what appropriation is. But no, see, if there's respect given to both the culture as well as the people it comes from, and there's no disregard for the people who created it as if they're inconsequential to its existence, then it's all good. However, there are certain things that are considered as sacred within various cultures, and things that are very much exclusive to people who are born within them. There's certain things that are just lineage based, and they're not something that can just be adopted or married into. But for the most part, people don't have to be from a culture just to enjoy something that comes from it. And the thing is, everyone, or at least most people, in some way, shape, or form has enjoyed something and or even participated in something from a culture that they themselves are not part of. But culture is meant to be shared, right? Yes! Culture is meant to be shared, not given away like an unwanted toy, not co-opted, not hijacked, but shared. You got plenty of Japanese rappers, b-boys, beatboxers, the whole nine. You listen to a lot of K-pop groups, both male and female ones, and I'm talking about from the way that they sing, to the way that they dance, to the fashion sense, to the way that they style their hair, etc., etc. That is quite clearly 90s and early 2000s R&B. The similarities are just a little bit too on the nose for it to just be a coincidence. It's ridiculously obvious that they take hella inspiration from black culture. And don't just take my word for it, there have been K-pop artists who have openly admitted themselves that they take inspiration from black culture. And see, here's the thing, taking inspiration is not the issue. Like I said, so long as the culture and the people who created the culture are respected, then it's cool. But the problem comes in when the respect is absent, and you got people who want to sit up there in front as if they came up with the idea in complete independence and isolation of any external influences, on top of being hella racist to the very same people that they're biting off of. And just for the record, this is a problem when any group of people does this shit to any other group of people. It's like seeing somebody who is clearly copying what what they see on your paper, but then they want to pretend like they're looking elsewhere when you catch them in the act. Like I said, it's fine to take inspiration from other sources, but don't act like you didn't take inspiration.
He copied my whole fucking flow! Word for word, bar for bar!
It would be pretty disingenuous for me to sit up here and pretend like my art style isn't at all inspired by Japanese manga and anime, when it quite clearly draws inspiration from that stuff. But see, I'm not trying to omit Japanese people from their own stuff, and I'm not trying to disrespect or make a joke out of their culture or something like that. I'm just simply taking inspiration from what I see them do and adding it to my own art style because I admire the style. I mean, with rappers, b-boys, DJs, and all that stuff in Japan, I don't see what they're doing as cultural appropriation, but rather cultural appreciation. Or at least I don't think every single one of them are doing it for the sake of appropriation, because don't get me wrong, with plenty of them, appropriation is exactly what they're trying to do. Hell, there's even plenty of other Japanese and Korean and other Asian people who have admitted that yes, that's exactly what they're trying to do, and they're not cool with that shit either, and they call it out.
It's a fact.
There are definitely some disrespectful and racist motherfuckers within places like Japan, China, and Korea, and other parts who even till this day will do stuff like blackface and have all these black caricatures that are clearly meant to make a mockery of black people and the culture. It'll show up in things like TV shows, commercials, posters. Don't just take my word for it, you can look this stuff up for yourself, but those dickheads ain't the people I'm talking about. Now with these other cats who are respectful, the way I see it, they're not trying to remove or erase black people from black culture, or trying to be disrespectful to black people or black culture, but rather they're showing their appreciation for something that they respect and admire. And like I said, that's fine. Now, regardless of your race, if you're of the mindset of, I don't want outsiders participating in my culture, if that's how you feel, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, just make sure you keep that exact same energy and practice what you preach. If you don't like seeing black people wear Chinese style clothing, that's fine. But don't say that shit and then go and try to be a b-boy and doing all these different dances and trying to use the slang and all that. Nah. Go do your own shit. But I grew up around. Fuck all that! If you don't like seeing Chinese people wear cornrows, that's fine. But don't say that shit and then go get a bunch of Chinese tattoos up and down your arm because you think it looks cool. See, here's how this works. Everyone is a guest in a house that isn't theirs. Everyone, or at least most people, at some point in time is gonna take a liking to something that comes from a culture that they themselves are not from. Be it the music, the fashion, the language, the food, the philosophies, the media, social norms, architecture, etc, etc. So with that being said, if Japanese people can make hip-hop music, be rappers, and b-boys and all that, then why can't black people be mangakas and make anime? I mean, it's quite hypocritical to be of the mindset that you can participate in something from someone else's culture, but they can't participate in something from your culture. But you see, the funny thing is this though, usually the people who say that non-Japanese people can't make manga or anime, or say that it doesn't count if it wasn't made in Japan by Japanese people, usually the people who say that aren't even Japanese. Now don't get me wrong, there's definitely those among them who do feel like that, but from what I and a lot of other black creatives usually hear is that it's usually the people who say this are not only non-Japanese, but a bunch of non-Asians who are just a bunch of Japanophile or Koreable weirdos who think that because they have such a gross obsession with these cultures that they can somehow become one of these people through osmosis. Let me know if you've heard this one before. Like, I honestly think I'm definitely more Japanese or more Korean than you are. I can definitely name drop a lot of random ass idols and celebrities from Japan and Korea. I genuinely feel like deep down inside I'm actually Asian, to the point that even when I go to the movies, like I eat popcorn with chopsticks.
I fucking hate you niggas.
I'm not even gonna front, I definitely did have a weeaboo phase back in high school, but that shit only lasted about 2 years max. And the craziest it ever got for me was just simply being obsessed with manga and anime. And as cringy as it was for me to think back on those days, it was still nowhere near as ridiculous as these motherfuckers nowadays. But anyway, I always thought it was kind of weird, right? The idea of someone trying to declare themselves as some sort of authority figure or gatekeeper of a culture that they themselves aren't even a part of. I think if a culture is going to be gatekept, then it should be done by the people that that culture actually belongs to. If someone's gonna kick someone out of a house, then it should be the people that that house actually belongs to, and not some guests who've gotten a little too full of themselves and are now under the delusion that it's their house to kick someone out of. Like, for example, those dick-lip folks who like to tell people that they can't cosplay as a character because they're not the same race as them, all while they're doing the exact same thing.
You can forcefully suck my nuts, nigga.
You see, manga and anime are not just art styles. That's just one way to simplify it into one particular category. There are many cultural aspects of the Japanese that are part of the medium. Now, what makes something part of a culture? See, within the realm of anime and manga, much of Japanese culture is actually intertwined within the stories themselves. And nah, I'm not just referring to the art style or the race of the characters or the episodes where the characters wear kimonos and attend a festival or some other kind of cultural celebration, but more so the Kisho Tenketsu style of storytelling, as well as the implementation of the Japanese language in the way that dialogue is written, which is very multifaceted, which can lead to dialogue having various meanings. And if you're not Japanese, or at least don't understand Japanese, you're not going to get the entire fullness of what's being said. The Japanese put much of themselves into their stories, which is the reason why I think that even when there's a manga or an anime story that doesn't take place in Japan, or anywhere near Asia for that matter, they still feel like Japanese stories because the essence is still there. Now, as far as non-Japanese people making anime and manga, see, I think that if the rules of what qualifies something as an anime or manga are followed thoroughly, then yeah, black people can definitely make anime and manga. Now, if the argument is that black creatives can't capture that essence of Japanese style storytelling the way that the Japanese can, you could say that there's truth to that. See, with any culture, no one can do it better than the originators. No matter how much they try to emulate that essence, at the end of the day, it's just an imitation of the source. If you were to go to a restaurant, right, where certain dishes from a certain culture are served, but you notice that the people who are making that food are not from said culture, most people will probably look at that and say that the restaurant would feel less authentic because of that. However, if the food meets all of the criteria of what makes that food dish taste good and what makes it that dish, then it still counts as whatever food from the culture it is. And the reason why is because it stays true to the original recipe as opposed to deviating away from it while trying to call it the same thing. Now, just because black creatives can't do exactly what Japanese creatives do with anime and manga, that doesn't mean that we can't do our own thing while taking a page from their book. For example, Korea has manhwa, which is their own version of manga, and their version of anime is called Hanguk Anime. If I pronounce that wrong, let me know how to say it right. Now, China has manhwa, which is their version of manga, and their version of anime is called donghua. If I pronounce that wrong, let me know how to say it right. So if black people can't make anime per se, then perhaps we could make our own version and call it by a different name. And aside from just having a different name, there could also be an implementation of different cultural aspects being ingrained into the medium that makes it stand out in its own right and stand out as its own thing. In addition to that, there could also be an implementation of things like traditional African art or even stuff from the Harlem Renaissance added to the art styles. And while it may be taking inspiration from Japanese anime and manga, it's not exactly that. Because like I said, one culture taking inspiration from another is fine. It's only considered stealing if you're pretending like the inspiration didn't come from the source that it's from. Now, personally, I like the idea of taking inspiration from manga and anime, but ultimately creating our own thing, as opposed to just having black characters or just being a black creative who makes comics. Now, don't get me wrong, I ain't saying that there's a problem with that if that's what you'd rather do, but personally, I'd like there to be some cultural aspects and cultural significance ingrained into the very medium, because that's ultimately how we'll be able to differentiate it from what Japan does and basically end up creating our own lane, just like China, Korea, and even France have done. Now again, I'm not saying that every black creative has to have that mindset or do that. I'm just saying what I want to do personally. Now, in recent days, I've been hearing about something called mana, which is more of a Western style of creating manga. Now, if you want to know more about that, I'd recommend checking out this video on Seijibot's channel. Now, something else I've heard a while ago was a form of East African, specifically Ethiopian style of sequential art called sunsils. I think that's how it's pronounced. If I said it wrong, let me know how to say it right. Now, I'm not sure if that term is exclusively for Ethiopian creatives. Probably can't use the term to describe what I'm trying to do, unless it doesn't matter. In which case, if I can use the term, I just might, just to make it stand out a bit more. Now, with manga, there are programs, contests, and platforms that are created by the Japanese where they're just straight up inviting foreigners to create and publish their own manga. So obviously, they're well aware that the medium has overseas fans, and they're open to the idea of non-Japanese creatives creating manga. You even have Japanese animation studios like Studio Mappa and Studio Trigger that have created anime for Western IPs. Stuff like Cyberpunk 2077, Yasuke. The latter I've made a critique about in a previous video that you can check out. Now, to sum it all up, participating in or enjoying something from a culture that you're not a part of is not a bad thing. Simply respect the culture, respect the people that the culture comes from, and that's really all there is to it. But if somebody wants to do the opposite and instead be hella disrespectful and be on some out-of-pocket habitual line-stepping type shit, then said people have every right to want to gatekeep their culture from you and want to throw your ass out through a closed door. I see. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Let me know what y'all think and we can chop it up in the comment section. Peace.